Hi everyone, Radhe Radhe. In this video, we're going to do chapter 6, verse 20. Prabhupada has put 20, 21, 22, and half of 23 in this verse, in this section. Swami Mukundanand has kept only 20 separately, so we'll just go with the 20 only. Okay, so let's sing this verse together. Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam paschanatmani tushyati. Okay, so the translation for this first part is: in this stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. And he says, when the mind restrained from material activities becomes still by the practice of yoga, then the yogi is able to behold the soul through the purified mind, and he rejoices in inner joy. Okay, so this part is also here. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. Okay, so let's do word by word. Yatro paramate chittam nirodham yoga sevaya. Yatro, in that state of affairs. Yatra is also here. In that. Uparamate sees chittam, mental activity. So in that state of affairs where mental activity cease, niruddham, being restrained from matter, yoga sevaya, performance of yoga. Seva is like doing service, so yoga sevaya, by performance of yoga. Yatra, in which also certainly atmana, by the pure mind, atmanam of the self. Pashyan, realizing the position of Atmani in the self, Tushyati, one becomes satisfied. So, when we become in the state of affairs where the mental activity cease to be, being restrained from matter by performance of yoga, then, in which case also then, by the pure mind, or is it then? In the stage of perfection called trance, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by the practice of yoga. Okay, so by the performance of yoga, the mind becomes restrained from material activities, from chittam niruddham, being restrained from chittam, mental activities, it ceases. And then the next thing is, this perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. This perfection is characterized. So, by the pure mind, atmanam, self, Pashyan, realizing the position of in the self, Tushyati. So then the person becomes satisfied in the self. They realize the position of the self and they become satisfied in the self. They're able to see the self and rejoice in the self by the pure mind. Okay, let's go to this one. Through the yogi is able to behold the soul through the purified mind, and he rejoices in the inner joy. So the yogi, the practice of yoga, so when through the purified mind, the yogi is able to see the soul, Pashyan, see. Yeah, so Pashyati is like we've seen this in chapter 1, verse 2 or something. So Pashyan, behold. So the person is able to see the soul through the purified mind and is satisfied in the self. Yeah, this translation is clearer, simpler. Okay, so what he says here in the commentary is, if there is muddy water in the glass, we cannot see through it, but if we put something, alum or something, in the water, the mud settles down and the water becomes clear. Similarly, when the mind is unclean, it obscures the perception of the soul, and any acquired scriptural knowledge of the Atma is only at the theoretical level. That's where we are. We're seeing it at the theoretical level. But when the mind becomes pure, the soul is directly perceived through realization. because of that layer, that 30 miles of layers of dust that's in front of the mirror, that's cleared out. And that's what I heard recently from somebody, that there's 30 miles or 30 kilometers of dust in front of the soul, like, that's the coverings in front of the soul, and we're not able to see the soul through all of that. So when we chant so this was from Shikshashtakam, verse 3, which is the only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came 500 years ago, only wrote 8 verses in his entire life, and these were glorifying. It's called the Shikshashtakam, glorifying the holy name, the Sankirtan, the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So he says that in the third verse, line 3, he says that when no, sorry. First verse, line 1. Cheto darpana marjanam. Cleansing the mirror of the heart. Cheto, heart, darpan, mirror, and marjanam, cleansing. So cleansing the mirror of the heart. So that's what we're doing by doing that. So what he's saying here is, when the mind restrained from activities, so that's a different path. That's not to be confused with what's written here. Here, what he's saying is, when the mind is restrained from material activities, then and becomes still by the practice of yoga, then the yogi is able to hold the soul through the behold the soul. Yogi is able to see the soul through the purified mind, and then he rejoices in that inner joy. He rejoices. He becomes self-realized. He rejoices in the self. Okay, so that's it for verse 20. We shall do chapter 6, verse 21 in the next video. Wish you a day filled with spiritual growth. Radhe Radhe.